September 11th, 1986, 12:44 p.m. in Ogden, Utah for you birth chart folks. That's where this all started for me. But let me ask you something. If you were to trace your life backwards from this exact moment and just follow the thread step by step, how many times does your life begin again? And really think about that for a second. Because by the time we reach this age, how many lives have we lived? How many versions of ourselves have we been? How many threads have we woven to get here? You know, sometimes life feels segmented. There's different chapters, different identities, different seasons of who we were. But if you follow the thread back far enough, something strange starts to happen. Everything comes together into one strand. Everything starts to make sense. Now, not in the way that a textbook makes sense. It's not linear. It's not neat. Definitely no bullet points or lists. It's more like the way that a dream makes sense while you're still inside it. Because when we look backwards, the path feels inevitable. But living forward feels like chaos. Forward feels like lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, like, how did I do this? How am I going to get out of this? Did I miss my path? Did I ruin my life? What is the next step? And I know that feeling all too well. Because if you had asked me years ago where my life was going, I wouldn't have just given you an answer. I would have given you a list. It would have been prioritized, alphabetized, color-coded, even Dewey Decimaled. I could have drawn you the exact map. Very responsible, very organized, life moving efficiently from point A to point B, B to C, on and on and on. I was very, incredibly wrong. Life doesn't move in straight lines. Life moves more like a river. Sometimes it slows behind a dam. Sometimes it crashes through the rapids. And other times it just drifts lazily under the sun, ebbing and flowing and moving over and around obstacles, taking turns that you never saw coming. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's foggy, sometimes it's a storm, but it's always moving. And when I follow the river of my life backwards, it doesn't lead me to a plan. It leads me to a little girl, standing in the doorway of a classroom, sucking her thumb long after the other kids had stopped. Watching children run around a room that I've never seen before. Another school, another place, another group of adults that she doesn't know. And the question she's trying to answer is simple. Who's taking care of me today? And that question followed me for years, even when I didn't realize that I was still asking it. Because when love and support is conditional, all stability disappears. My parents had a high conflict divorce, and my father loved me conditionally. I was a pawn to him, not a person. And when love depends on behavior, you get very good at behavior management. You learn to scan the room. You learn to watch faces. You learn to listen for tone. You learn to regulate yourself before anyone else can. I learned to read a room before I learned to read a book. Be easy enough so that you won't get hit. Be quiet enough, maybe they won't yell. Minimize your needs so that maybe they'll take you with them instead of leaving you behind again. When you grow up that way, you don't realize it's survival. You think it's just your personality. You call it independence and you call it strength. People even tell you that you're wise beyond your years. But children are not supposed to be wise beyond their years. Wisdom like that is usually borrowed from fear. I carried that armor with me for years. It showed up everywhere, in the constant scanning, in the people-pleasing, in my emotional shutdowns. That wiring led me to situations where I was sexually abused. First by family and then by strangers. My protection became gaining weight, becoming invisible. Eventually I found myself weighing nearly 350 pounds, and I didn't hide just behind food. I hid behind drugs and alcohol, behind lies and survival tactics that only pushed the spiral even deeper. For a long time, I thought everything was wrong with me. Then I figured out it was just my survival brain. My nervous system had simply learned how to stay safe. Eventually, I started therapy, I started taking care of myself, and step by step, life slowly started getting better. I began loving the person I was becoming. But I never acknowledged, let alone loved, the person that I was. Eventually, I started a family of my own, and I thought that I was healing, until life cracked something open deep inside of me. This date was December 12th, 2019. And that was the day I miscarried what would have been my second baby. I had planned to announce the pregnancy during Christmas. There was already presents under the tree. I was so excited to be growing our family. And as that baby's heart, that once beat to the rhythm of my own had vacated its residence, and all that was left was blood and tissue, I remember sitting there, feeling two completely opposite emotions inside the same body. I was grieving the baby that I had just lost, while nursing the baby that I held in my arms. The guilt was overwhelming. What kind of a human am I to overlook this blessing that is here in my arms and to focus on the burden that is trying to exit my womb? But something else totally unexpected happened that night. My son didn't care how broken I felt. He didn't care that my hair was messy, that I smelled like exhaustion and blood. He didn't care that my singing voice came out aggressively off key. He loved me. He loved me because I was there. He didn't care how I showed up. He just cared that I did show up. And as he nursed, he looked up at me with complete trust. No judgment, no evaluation, just love, unconditional love. And the river kept moving, because rivers always do. A while later, I did get my rainbow baby. And today, I'm the happy, healthy sports coach mom to two incredible little boys. Excuse me, they're big boys at this point. They are beautiful, they are strong, they are sensitive. They are emotionally aware in ways that I never had the chance to be as a child. And getting to raise them tethered to love might be the greatest healing of my life, because suddenly I saw something that I never understood before. While he moved through the world tethered to love, secure and safe, I had spent my whole life moving through the world untethered, scanning, embracing, and adapting, and then suddenly it clicked. The shrinking, the hyper-awareness, the people-pleasing, the over-delivering, the constant need to be needed, those weren't weaknesses. That was a brilliant coping mechanism developed from an untethered child fighting for survival. And once I understood that, I started doing the most radical thing that a human can do. I started loving myself, like really loving myself. Releasing the shame and the embarrassment I had covered myself with for a lifetime, I started loving every version of me, especially the ones that I tried to hide. I chose to love the girl who survived sexual abuse. I chose to love the girl who grew up without guidance and had to raise herself. I chose to love the girl who numbed away the pain the only way she knew how. I chose to love the girl who built armor just to make it through the day. Because every version of me carried me here. Every scar, every wrong turn, every step of the way, I was with me. If I was going to hell, I couldn't hide or shame any version of me that came before. I had to sit down with each one of them, understand what they were afraid of, and love them through the storm. And when I look back now, I can't find the right path, because there wasn't one. There was only my path. And I can love every step that brought me here. So tonight, I want to invite you to do something. Think about one thing that you've always criticized about yourself. And instead of asking, what is wrong with me, ask a different question. Ask, what was I trying to protect myself from? And trace the thread back. Because many of the things that we criticize about ourselves were once brilliant survival strategies. And the most radical thing that you can do now is not shame the child who built the armor, but reach back and love them. Now when I think about that little girl standing in the doorway of her classroom, sucking her thumb, tiny backpack on her shoulders, wondering who was going to take care of her that day, I finally know the answer. I am. I am the love that little girl was searching for. Everything I spent my life looking for was inside me the whole time. Because there is no perfect path. There is no right or wrong turns. There is no race. There is nothing to win. All there is love. And love really is the answer.